Welcome to NVC Life. I'm Rachelle Lamb, veteran NVC trainer and relationship coach, helping listeners navigate interpersonal conflict and ground more deeply into relational living. Greetings, fellow humans. In last week's episode, I shared a clip from a previous interview I'd had earlier this year, and the interviewer, Marlisa Hollins, is asking me a question related to an event that occurred between her and her husband, which is fairly universal in our corner of the world, which is this. One spouse wants to go out for the evening, in this case it's a Friday night, and the other one is staying at home to care for children. And one of the things she said in the interview was they're having a night off and having their autonomy as a person. Now, this only came to me as I was re-listening to the episode. I'm going to say that again. They're having a night off and having their autonomy as a person. Now, if we look at the underlying premise here, it's that person is having their autonomy by going out on a Friday evening, and the other person who is staying at home to care for children is not having their autonomy. And underlying that premise is the following, is that when you are having your autonomy, you're having a good time. I just think it's really important to look at this particular belief because it's an underlying belief system that creates a lot of problems for us. I might ask the following question. Now, given that two people, I'm going to assume, were mature adults, and we decide we're going to cobble a life together, and then we decide we're going to have children together, and there is this unfortunate narrative that we might believe that it's all happily ever after, a Disney kind of production. And somebody who speaks really, I think, succinctly to that and clearly to that is Alain de Botton. And I'm going to read a segment from his book here, which is called The Course of Love. And it's a story that does not have a happy ending. I can't say that it has a horrible ending either. It just goes the way the life goes, which means that sometimes there are moments of enormous joy. Other times there are moments of enormous frustration. The title of the chapter is The Prestige of Laundry. And we're discussing here two people, Kirsten and Robbie. So here we go. They are a modern couple and therefore share tasks according to a complex arrangement. Robbie goes to work 5 days a week, but comes home early on Friday afternoons to look after the children, which he is also responsible for doing on Saturday mornings and Sunday afternoons. Kirsten works Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays till 2 o'clock, and on weekends is with the kids on Saturday afternoons and Sunday mornings. He does Friday bath time and prepares supper 4 nights a week. She buys the food and the household supplies while he takes care of the trash, the car, and the garden. It's just after 7 on Thursday evening. Since this morning, Robbie has attended 4 meetings, dealt with a failing tile supplier, cleared up, he hopes, a misconception about tax rebates, and sought to bring the new CFO on board with a scheme for a client conference which could have great implications for the third quarter, or alternatively, could be a bit of a mess. He has had to stand in the aisle of a crowded commuter bus for half an hour each way and is now walking back from his stop in the rain. He is thinking about how great it will be to finally get home, pour himself a glass of wine, read the children a chapter of the famous 5, kiss them goodnight, and sit down for a meal and some civilized conversation with his most sympathetic ally and friend, his spouse. He is at the end of his tether and inclined to feel justifiably sorry for himself. Kirsten has meanwhile been home almost all day. After driving the children to school, where there was an ugly fight in the car over a pencil case, she put away breakfast, made the beds, took 3 work-related calls. Her colleagues seem to have a hard time remembering she's not in the office on Thursdays or Fridays, cleaned 2 bathrooms, vacuumed the house, and sorted out everyone's summer clothes. She arranged for a plumber to come and look at the taps, picked up the dry cleaning and delivered a chair to be reupholstered, booked a dental checkup for William, collected the children from school, prepared and fed them a healthy snack, cajoled them into doing their homework, got supper ready, ran a bath, and cleaned a set of ink stains off the living room floor. Now she's thinking how great it will be to finally have Robbie come home and take over so she can pour herself a glass of wine, read the children a chapter of the famous five, kiss them goodnight, and sit down for a meal and some civilized conversation with her most sympathetic ally and friend, her spouse. She is at the end of her tether and inclined to feel justifiably sorry for herself. When they at last find themselves alone in bed reading, Kirsten doesn't want to cause trouble, but there are a few things on her mind. "Will you remember to iron the duvet covers tomorrow?" she asks without raising her eyes from her book. His stomach twists. He strives for patience. "It's Friday," he points out. "I thought perhaps you could do that kind of thing on a Friday." Now she looks up. Her gaze is cold. Gotcha, she says. "Domestic stuff. My job. Never mind. Sorry I asked." Back to her book. These grating, scratching encounters can be more exhausting than flat-out rage. He's thinking, I earn 2/3 of our income, possibly even more depending on how the total is calculated, but it seems I also do more than my fair share of everything else. I'm made to feel as though my work were solely something I was doing for me. In fact, it's rarely satisfying and invariably stressful. I can't be expected, on top of it all, to take on the duvets. I do my bit. I took the children swimming last weekend, and just now I loaded the dishwasher. Deep down, I want to be nurtured and protected. I'm furious. And she's thinking, everyone seems to believe my 2 days at home are all about relaxing and that I'm lucky to have this time. But this family wouldn't hold together for 5 minutes without all the things I get done in the background. Everything is my responsibility. I long to take a break, but whenever I bring up some chore I want to pass on, I'm made to feel I'm being unfair. So in the end, it seems easier to be quiet. There's something wrong with the lights again, and I will have to chase the electrician tomorrow. Deep down, I want to be nurtured and protected. I'm furious. The modern expectation is that there will be equality in all things in the couple, which means at heart an equality of suffering. But calibrating grief to ensure an equal dosage is no easy task. Misery is experienced subjectively, and there's always a temptation for each party to form a sincere yet competitive conviction that, in truth, his or her life really is more cursed in ways that the partner seems uninclined to acknowledge or atone for. It takes a superhuman wisdom to avoid the consoling conclusion that one has the harder life. I'll stop right there. I highly recommend the book. It's highly sobering, disturbing, and insightful. What we're seeing is this competitiveness around who is suffering more, who has the greater autonomy. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I think we would say that we equate autonomy with freedom and good times. If it's not good times, then it's not freedom and it's not autonomy. And perhaps it would be a good to learn suffering, that life is in fact full of suffering. And the narrative that we've been fed, whether it's television shows, films that we've watched, books that we've read, messages from the culture, from the parents, you can have it all, chase your dreams, you can do this. It doesn't really turn out to be that way. For every joy, there's probably equal amounts of suffering. Life is hard. It's not easy. And having children is not easy. Raising children is not easy. And so to compete, to see who's the victim, who's the greater victim, typically becomes the go-to when couples are having a challenge between them. I suffer more than you do. I do more than you do. No, you got this wrong. You're not reading it correctly. I do more. What do you think I'm doing when I'm going out into the world and working my butt off? I'm doing it for us. I'm doing it for our family. And what do you think I'm doing if I'm at home and I'm taking care of most of the chores? One of the things that it would be good to learn is that much of life is lived, in fact, in the mundane, the everyday mundane. Further on in the chapter, de Botton writes, "We seem unwilling to allow for the possibility that the glory of our species may lie not only in the launching of satellites, the founding of companies, and the manufacturing of miraculously thin semiconductors, but also in an ability, even if it is widely distributed among billions, to spoon yogurt into small mouths, find missing socks, clean toilets, deal with tantrums, and wipe congealed things off tables. Here, too, there are trials worthy not of condemnation or sarcastic ridicule, but also of a degree of glamour so that they may be endured with greater sympathy and fortitude." There was a time when I remember speaking about my mother as being a stay-at-home mother. Many people in my generation, I would say many, but certainly it was more common in that day that, the father would be going out and working in the world while the mother would stay at home. And my mother was a very learned human being. She was highly educated, very intelligent, read a lot of books. And I remember years later, even now, hearing people use the term just a stay-at-home mom. And I wonder what kind of disservice we do when we use terminology like that. The daily, the mundane, the less than glamorous, the work that actually needs to be done ongoingly in order that people can be fed, be sheltered, be clothed. Domestic work, it's holy work. It's sacred work. I think until that we start to view it in that way, there will be this constant drive to have the kind of work that is free of the mundane, that is full of excitement, that is full of novelty, when in fact, the daily grind is where the holy lives, you might say. So this is something I'm wondering about, and the question of autonomy here, I invite people to consider what they actually mean when they say, I have a need for autonomy. Certainly I understand the need for respect, for one's personhood, for making choices. But I invite you to not confuse it with the notion we have of freedom and having a good time and having things go our way. Thank you for tuning into NVC Life. For future episodes, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. For free resources or to book a private session with me, head over to RachelleLamb.com. Until the next time, stay sane, grateful, and generous.